Welcome back to Flying Wombat TV, and today is a very special day because this is part one of our international collab mini-series. So we linked up with Zak and Chris, who are the brewers over at Santa Fe Brewing Company in New Mexico in the States. And in this video, we workshop a brand new West Coast IPA recipe. So let's get stuck into it so that we can get to brewing.
Would you classify yourself as home brewer, professional home brewer, or do you actually distribute and do a little bit of
Oh man,
a little bit of both?
I wish I could distribute. So licensing in Australia is a very, very fickle thing. It's as I understand it, you can quite legitimately set up garage breweries in the States and a lot of different of the states out there, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Here, our council sucks, our government sucks, and our state government sucks. So it is like the worst country on earth to set up a brewery because there is roadblocks at every possible turn. So I've got what could be a professional garage brewery here. There's a lot of stainless steel and a lot of like ridiculously overpowered equipment for what I'm doing. But no, I can't sell any of it. I wish I could. If I could, I would have quit my head.
I'm sure. You can have all your friends over and just give out the beer and say, "I want to charge you for a hot dog."
Yeah.
Buy a pretzel, you get 2 free pints.
That's great.
Exactly. I just realized we haven't actually done an introduction. So, well, I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at you guys. But yeah, introduce yourselves, Chris and Zak from Santa Fe. Take it away.
Yeah, man. So hi, I'm Zak. I'm in total, I've been in the brewing industry probably about close to 6 years. I started in the Santa Fe Brewing Company packaging facility and then kind of climbed my way up, and now I'm working in our cellar department. And this is my buddy Chris, and we've actually known each other since we were kids. Going back, we're early 30s now, but I've known this guy since I was 10 years old. So it's kind of funny that our paths crisscrossed and meandered around town, and now we ended up working at the same facility. So I've been in this department going on 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years. And really, I take care of the Bright Farm tanks, the fermenters, do a bunch of cleaning, dry hopping, you name it, all the cellar duties. That's my facility right now.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff, all the very hands-on, all the slogging hoses around and really just getting dirty, covered in hops and beer most of the day. And so I found a new love, and that's just being drenched in beer.
Yeah, nice. It's not
and then Chris splits my other side.
It's really not as romantic or as glamorous as it sounds, is it?
Really, it's not. The tanks may be shiny, but it's a lot of hard work.
When you tell people that, you work at a brewery and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, that must be fun. You must just sit around and drink beer all day." And you're like, yeah it's actually like fucking manual labor, and it sucks.
It sucks, but we love it. We love the
It is fun. It is fun. Honestly, if I'm learning new things, I'm having fun, and I really like it. I've been here at the Santa Fe Brewing Company for about 9 years, and
veteran.
About a year and a half in, I started brewing, and more recently, I've started to do some cellar work, running our centrifuge and things like that. So It's been good. It's been fun.
Nice, almost hitting that 10-year long service leave. So did I?
Yeah.
Is that a sore? Well, I guess that's as good a segue as anything into what we're going to brew today. So for you guys watching us here, we discussed off camera a couple of weeks ago what would be the best beer to brew as this collab. And ironically, this is our first collab, and we've decided to do it the most difficult way possible across time zones on opposite sides of the planet, because we can't make it easy, but it's fine. So it's an international collab, and we decided, well, seeing as we're an Australian, home brewery, we're going to be brewing with the actual pros in the States. It makes so much sense to brew an IPA. It's the godfather and the foundation of the craft beer movement. So throwing over to you guys, what kind of an IPA do you think would be fun to brew?
I'm good with whatever.
Like as they like to say, like the West Coast style, a little bit cleaner, a little bit brighter. But I think the popularity of those East Coast hazy IPAs are, very attention grabbing, and they get
It is.
a big look on our side that we're actually starting to really look at our hazy IPA. And now not only do we have one, but I think we have 3 different styles of hazy
Yeah.
within this last year that have really blown up.
Yeah.
It is popular. So
It is
if
popular.
you want to
so
go with,
really noticing that.
with the trend, we could do a hazy IPA,
Or
We could do a hazy,
or
or
do
we could
wanna
do that bright, nice and flashy, crisp 7.5.
I think he's trying to sell you on a West Coast style.
West Coast, the best coast, but
To be honest, I don't mind. We've done a couple of hazies lately, and I think what would be really great is to actually brew a real West Coast from people that actually make real West Coasts. Like, being that that is one of your flagship
close.
beers. I
couple
reckon,
states
yeah,
over. But yeah, we're right there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
reckon we give it a red hot crack. And to be honest, like my hazy game is, well, from my own opinion, fairly decent. West Coast, they're I find them to be a bit of a trickier beast. Like, you can't just throw a ton of hops at it in the dry hop or late stage, flame out and expect it to turn out okay. To hazies, to an extent, if you get your water profile fine and there's plenty of oats and there's plenty of wheat, and then you just throw a ton of really heavy hop oiled hops in there,
Yeah.
you will just about always get some kind of a juice bomb. Hazies,
Yeah.
West Coasts, I feel are a little more nuanced than that. You actually have to have a bit of a better construction and a fundamental understanding.
a little bit more balance to it overall, and that's harder to nail. Whereas, those hazies you can kind of just throw whatever in at the end, and you get a
The
pretty
juice
good
bomb.
juice bomb.
The
Yeah.
juice bomb.
But
All
I'm
right,
good with West Coast.
Want to do West Coast?
let's do it. Let's do a West
Final.
Coast.
Okay.
Cool.
West Coast
All right.
style.
I reckon then, in that case, let's start off with, let's go back to basics. Let's start with, what kind of ABV are we trying to target here?
If you want to see the entire discussion that we had with the guys over at Santa Fe for this recipe workshop, you can check it out in the link down below in our brand new Patreon. In there, you'll also find a bunch of behind the scenes footage that we're going to be constantly updating, extra extended cuts that we don't condense down for YouTube, as well as more just updates and behind the scenes stuff so that you can get more involved with us and help us influence what kind of videos you want us to bring to the channel for all of you. So check it out in the link down below.
Let's go. Let's shoot for it. 7 to 8.
Yep, nice.
7 to 8.
Yeah.
Right in, we're smack in the middle. But we had done our little sour, and I think we kind of, for the viewers, we had done a little bit of a collab sour before, and we were a little bit on the lower end. But I think we could definitely go back and this time go for the higher.
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll make it count this time. Yeah.
So for you guys, Zak,
Gotta do it right.
actually the way that I connected with Zak was on a beer forum on Facebook way back when, and it was off the back of our original raspberry Berliner Weiss sour. And so Zak went and brewed that one over at Santa Fe, and he loved it. So that's where we connected and started getting the seeds of an idea for doing a official collab beer on camera. Talking grains, well, the backbone of it has got to be like a basic 2-row.
Yep.
Is there a particular type of, ale malt that you guys are running with that's maybe more on the English style, or is it more towards a cleaner kind of American style of ale malt?
I think it's more of a cleaner sort of American style, nothing too
Yep.
fancy, no particular English style malt.
Okay, easy. And then what do you guys want to throw in there as far as giving body heft, a bit of malt profile? What are you drinking there, Zak?
I'm kind of cheating right now, and it's a canned cocktail, but it's about
The brand, bro.
3-4 o'clock right about our time. So
Yeah, fair.
we've been working all day. So
You know what? Don't blame you. Carry on.
for reference, it's a mango style margarita and a canned cocktail.
Yeah, one of the it's got to be one of the douchey craft beer things I've ever heard someone say.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Can't speak to
Yeah,
that.
Nice. All right. Yeah, grain bill. What are we gonna go as far as specialties? Imagine crystal malt or like
Yeah.
some kind of caramel.
We have
with
some
acid in the mix.
C20 if we want a little bit more body. We have some like C80 around too, but generally IPAs, we've been using a lot of C20 for that.
Okay.
We could do it a little bit different and do a lighter or darker crystal if you're whatever you're feeling.
I don't mind. It just depends how chewy we want the body to be.
Yeah.
Are we going for a more old school style of West Coast, like more like, 90s style where you've got a pretty decent, caramel heft to it? Or are we going a little more new school where that body is going to be a little more balanced and a little bit lighter?
Play into it a little more and do a little
old school. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like it. All right, yeah, let's
I
go
like
for
the
the
idea
dark
of it.
crystal then. So you want to go C80?
Yeah, let's do it. Cool.
Nice. All right, we got ale malt, we got crystal. Do you guys run with anything like Munich or dextrin in your IPAs, or would you want to run with that in your IPA?
I think I have in the past. I'm certainly not opposed. We could do a little bit of dextrin. I think we have a little bit of dextrin laying around.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
I have become a bit of a convert with using dextrin. I never really used to touch it, and then just the last 10 brews or something, I've been throwing it in there, and it's like a cheat code. It is such a cheat code for just adding body and mouthfeel. It's kind of ridiculous. And now I kind of kick myself. I'm like, why was I so opposed to this for so long? In my head, it felt kind of like cheating. And I was like, no, I want to make beer the real way. But no, it's so much better.
It's nice. And a little goes a long way. You don't have to like go crazy with it. And it is nice. It's definitely nice to have in your back pocket for when you try it a couple of times, you're like, this isn't quite right. Like, let's try this, and then it's all of a sudden it's there and it's popping and it's just so much better.
All right. So if we're running for 30 pounds total grain bill, then I think it makes more sense to talk percentages for the actual grains themselves. What kind of split do you guys want to run with? What kind of split do you guys typically run with when you're going ale to then your specialties? Because in my head, the rule of thumb is somewhere between 90 to 95% running with base. But do you guys like to play outside of that?
No, that usually sounds about right. I was going to say it's usually never much more over like a 95.5. If it is, it's just by a couple percentage points. So we could, to keep things simple, we could try like a 95.5 split, or we could, I don't know. I don't have any sort of numbers in front of me, or I usually try to do all my recipe stuff on the computer and try to find that split, but 92 and then 5 and then what is that, 3? Yeah.
All right, nice. 92% ale, 5 on the crystal, and 3 for Dex. No, I think that's a pretty good balance. I think any more than that, and you do start to lean into something that's a little too cloying, starts becoming more like a sweet amber with a weird amount of hops than a than a West Coast. All right, I think that's a pretty good split. All right, well, that's the easy part done. Hops. This is the make or break of an old school West Coast. Yeah, if we're going old school, then I think we've got to lean into some old school hop characteristics. Probably can't be using a ton of new world varieties like El Dorado and that kind of stuff. So probably got to be more of your classic American stuff like Chinook or Warrior or insert other names that I can't remember.
Yeah. We have a little bit of Chinook. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of our hops have changed, and I think we have a lot of newer styles. right now, but I think we can get our hands on really whatever. And so we could definitely do some spicy Chinook in there. That might be
Yeah.
kind of interesting. We could do let's see, what else do we have? We have some leftover Simcoe. That's kind of like a cheat code for hops too.
I don't mind that though. Simcoe, like, man, it is. It's like the next of the hop world. It's so versatile. It's kind of like Mosaic. You can use it in so many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We have Bravo would be a good bittering hop.
Yeah.
That's usually what we just use for bittering hops.
Okay. Nice.
We got a bunch of Bravo for sure.
Easy.
I think of what's in the cooler right now.
Yeah, me too.
Crystal? Too new?
Crystal. I'm not super familiar with Crystal.
Crystal's actually really hard to come by now in Australia. When I first started brewing, God, this must be like 7 years ago or something now. Crystal was a really popular hop for, classic American style beers. And then for whatever reason, at least in my experience, maybe you guys have otherwise, it just absolutely evaporated. And I cannot find Crystal for the life of me. So maybe we avoid that one only because I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to get my hands on it. But
yeah, no worries.
If we want to go classic kind of citrus style and we're going old school West Coast, then Cascade could be another good option.
Okay.
Or even if we want to do a more beefed up version, we could just go Citra.
Ooh, yeah. I think we've
got all of it.
All of that.
Yeah.
We got a couple pallets. Worth.
Nice. All right, let's run with a bit of Citra. So that gives us Chinook, Simcoe, Bravo, and Citra. I think that's enough. I don't think.
Yeah, that's plenty.
Yeah, I don't think you need to muddy the waters much more than that. So, running with now we're going to be talking about ounces. So that's why I've got my other computer here so that I can run some quick maths to actually understand what we're talking. We've got to be going for a decent IBU rate if we're going classic West Coast. So what kind of dosage are you guys vibing for a Bravo bittering edition at the start of boil?
I would normally shoot for about probably no more than like 2.5 ounces at the start with something like Bravo, and then it would be a mix of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it would be a mix sort of from there throughout to get, like whatever the 10-minute is. I would sort of fluff up the rest of the IBUs out of it, but of course it's all dependent on the alpha acid that I have at the time. So if it's a little bit higher than what I'm used to, then it would be a little bit less. I've definitely done some where it's like half of that, and I split it between a couple different varieties or something just to change it up a little bit.
Okay. I reckon we keep it simple. Yeah, let's run with a 2.5. So that's 70 grams, by the way, for those of us on the metric system. So yeah, I think that's a pretty hefty bittering addition. And then where do we want to whack in the rest of our hops? Because if we're going late stage boil, we're still going to get a few more IBU points there. So yeah, what are you guys feeling as far as the next edition? Do you want to go really old boil? Do you want to go classic 15 minutes? Do you want to go flame out? What's your plan?
We could. When I first started, it was like a 60-20 and then a whirlpool edition. Now we're doing more of like a 10-minute edition, and then our whirlpool is more of like a 0-minute edition, and then it gets whirlpooled off or whatever. So I'm inclined to say maybe like a 20 or a 15. With how much Bravo we have, maybe a 15 and not.
Yeah, the later the boil, I think the better with that hefty punch at the start. So I probably
that way it's not there for
20.
So I think a 15 or a 10 would be good. I'm inclined to say Simcoe and a little bit of Citra or something, or maybe a mix of like Simcoe, Citra, or Cascade can be in there. Simcoe, at least here, is the West Coast IPA is kind of like it's pretty it's popular hop. It's
Yeah.
popular hop for a reason. It does a very good job at what it does there. Yeah, I'm good with sort of whatever. I know that Zak doesn't have too much experience doing this kind of stuff, so if he's got any ideas or wants to experiment, I let him play around with it a little bit too.
I would love, I reckon, to throw a bit of Chinook in that late stage and get a little bit
Okay.
of spicy
A
pine
little
flavor.
spicier, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in my head, or at least in my mind anyway, when I first started drinking, actual craft beer, it was West Coast IPA. And I distinctly remember those early IPAs having a ton of like that resinous, spicy pine-like quality. And
Yeah.
you don't really find that as often anymore, at least not here. We don't really have a huge amount of old school West Coast going around anymore. It's definitely more new school, and then heaps of hazies, neepers, and all New England style. So I think it would be cool to kind of go blast from the past and have a little bit of that spice in there.
Yeah, I'm
All
super
about that.
super down with that.
So we could go 10 minutes, a 10-minute edition of the Chinook and a 10-minute edition of the Simcoe.
Yeah.
And then did you want to run all three for Flame Out or for 0-minute edition, or did you want to run only the one odd one out at the 0-minute edition?
I was thinking of just the one, but maybe another one in there for a little bit more aroma and stuff might help a little bit. But we're also going to be dry hopping it too, I'd imagine.
True.
So,
True.
Simcoe?
Citra, I think is the one that we don't have on there.
Citra Flame Out. That could be nice. Give that tropical citrus style punch. Play
Kind
nice
of
with a little bit of that spice.
juxtapose that pine.
Yeah. I think that's kind of necessary.
Chinook.
I think I agree with you. Throwing the Chinook again in an equal edition might get a little too earthy. So to freshen it up and brighten everything up, then maybe Citra at 0 minutes.
Yeah, I think about half an ounce each of those. Again, depending on alpha acids, would get us sort of just under that 70 or closer to 65 IBU mark, which I think is like a good spot for something like this to sit at. With something that
and like we can't forget as well, we've got a decent amount of pretty dark crystal in there to balance everything out and give a decent sweetness. So I think there's enough. I always like to think of when I brew beers as like the holy trinity. So you've got like IBUs, you've got sweetness, and then you've got ABV. At the moment, it feels like everything is more or less in a good sync. Yeah,
definitely. Also, when something's dry hopped like that, it's not necessarily contributing to the IBUs, but the perceived bitterness when you do drink it. So it's going to feel like it's a lot more punchy than what's really in there, I suppose. But it's, I'm excited.
Okay, cool. Citra at 0 minutes is the last hop to discuss. Do you want to go for a heavier dosage rate than the 2 late stages?
I'd like to offset the Chinook a little bit and have that sort of lighter finish on it, and it's also sort of brightening up the malty sweetness with a little bit of maybe floral and stuff too. So like I would be inclined to go on the heavier side, maybe a full ounce or something.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I'm always a fan of having some pretty hefty additions at Flame Out or a Whirlpool, just because you're pulling out all the aroma and all that hop oil flavor, and you've kind of got little to no risk as far as generating any further astringency. So that's sounds good to me. Do you guys use Whirlflock, by the way, end of boil?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll tick that one up. Oh, mash temp, super important. We completely skipped over that. Yeah, how much body do you want to retain in this? Do you want to go for like kind of a really fermentable mash, or do you want to kind of go medium to high and have a little bit of something left at the end?
Medium to high.
Sure.
A little,
Yeah.
a little bit of a like we're talking mouthfeel.
Yeah,
Like at the
Zach
end of it?
was totally
Yeah.
going for let's just go thick,
I'm just
and
like
chewy,
right in there.
really bitter and
Yeah.
old school. You just want a beer that'll put a bit of hair on your chest.
Exactly. I mean, like, yeah. I need a little bit more.
Yeah. No.
What temperature do you guys normally run with in Fahrenheit? I'll get my converter up.
About 140 to 150, depending on the style.
Yeah.
And on our small little fun
Pilot system.
screw around system,
Yeah.
pilot system's a little
too
still
professional
gracious
for what it is.
to call it that. No, it's great. It's not the greatest at temperature regulation, so we'll see.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, if we want to run on the higher side, then when you say you run anywhere between 145 to 150, are you saying 150 is like for you what you would make a stout with, or would you still make like an IPA at 150?
No, IPAs are probably sitting closer to like the 140 mark, 145 at mash. Yeah, like 140 to 145, 150 for the darker stuff, usually stouts and things like that.
So then I'm willing to follow your advice on this one here, because we want to keep the mash temperatures the same. So what do you want to run with for old school West Coast then? If 150 is a little too high, where's the happy medium?
148 maybe?
Yeah, sure. The 148 for metric users, that's 64 and a half. Fermentation time, I mean, that one typically for me would be anywhere between a week to 2 weeks. I don't think that's one that needs to be controlled so much, but cold crashing at the end of this?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yep, no worries. Firm time, is just firm time. It is what it is. It depends what the yeast is.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, now we're heading over towards, yeast. What kind of yeast? It's got to be more of a cleaner fermenting style if we're going old school West Coast. It's got to let the malt and the hops shine. So what yeasts do you guys typically have access to in the brew house that are a cleaner style?
We are pretty limited on yeast. We just have like our two like house styles.
Yep.
Our lager yeast and then our ale yeast. So that's what we're going to use, which is a dry English ale yeast.
Okay.
And yeah, that's about all we got. But if we wanted to do something else, I think I would be able to order like a small
No, that's
sample
fine.
size of stuff.
I think
bring
dry
it in.
English ale suits the style anyway. Like, in your opinion, would that lean, and I don't know if you've used either of these, being in the commercial world, but would that lean more towards like a USO5 or more of like an SO4? Like USO5 being a really clean fermenting, American style, and SO4 being a slightly more estery English cousin. SO4 or USO5. So SO4 being like the English variant, which is slightly more estery, and then USO5 being just really clean all the way through.
I think it's a pretty clean yeast. I think it probably leans closer to that.
Well, that will be our comparative version of USO5 for the win. We're gonna go. Well, I mean, I always prefer to do yeast starter. When you guys are doing these pilot batches, are you going starters or are you just going dry packet?
For this stuff, we were actually just pulling yeast that is in active production off the production floor from
nice.
a tank.
So you're going like
that is
slurry.
Yeah. So just get some good healthy yeast off of one of the mini tanks here before it's dry hopped and pitch it in. So
Okay, easy. Yeah, we'll go. We'll just make a starter then to be as similar as possible. I have always had a preference for keeping the mash volume and then the sparge volume almost equal. Do you guys like to run that way, or do you guys prefer to run with a much higher mash volume and then a much less sparge volume?
I like to try to keep them fairly equal, but with this system that tends to work the best. That with that, the water retention within the grain, I'm like using so much more on sparge just to get everything out and through and rinsed and stuff like that. So it tends to, my math is always like a few gallons off with using a bit more in sparge to get to collection volume.
Yep.
I want to keep the mash in sort of on the thicker side for this. Try to just do it equal parts. I think that might just be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. That's about 15.8 gallons is what I would normally run with for something of this batch size, of this kind of grain density. Something similar for you?
Yep.
Okay. That is going to be a thick mash. That's basically a 1-to-2 ratio.
That is going to be super thick. So yeah, like a 8 and 6 split. 8 gallons and then 6 gallons. I don't know what that is in liters. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. 8 gallons. I mean, that's still basically a 2-to-1 ratio for the mash in.
We're going to need to add more total water to ours probably just to hit collection. And I don't know off the top of my head what that's going to do to our overall gravity. But overall, we'll probably be sitting a little bit lower just from my experience running that. But again, I got a couple of tricks. I think we can make it work, but if we want to shoot for a 10-5 split, that's probably good, and we will do our best to make it there.
Fair enough. The all-important question, water profile. So we're going classic West Coast, which in my mind would lead towards like a 2-to-1 ratio from sulfate to chloride. Does that sound right to you, or do you run even more extreme than that?
I think that sounds about right, but water varies so much. So I know our water is really hard. We add a lot of chloride to ours. There's a lot of like just natural minerals in it. We have
so are you
water
guys
here,
running
so.
with like natural, is it like spring water? Is it just,
Yeah,
water?
it's just groundwater. It comes from we have a well here, so all of our water is like well water.
Oh,
so
like proper groundwater. Right.
yeah. Yeah. So it's got a lot of minerals in it already, and we balance it out with a lot of calcium chloride and a little bit of phosphoric acid. It's too much for me. I'll adjust my alpha acids, I'll adjust my malt and all that kind of stuff, and I get close.
I think generally speaking, if you're running with pretty hard water, you're almost already like 90% of the way there anyway.
Yeah.
I would run with somewhere in the realm of 110 calcium, 18 magnesium, because that's just basically what my groundwater is. 16 sodium, again, same thing. 100 chloride, 200 sulfate, and then the 57 bicarbonate, because that's just in my tap water. So I think the most important aspect in my eyes for this is not so much like the calcium, magnesium, all that stuff, but it's more about the sulfate to chloride ratio. If we're trying to go for crisper, snappier finish to emphasize that bright hot character, as long as that's a 2-to-1, it feels like we're basically going to have a fairly similar beer, even if the numbers are slightly different here and there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. I will shoot you over a screenshot of that, Zach, so you don't have to write down all those numbers.
I
think
am
you already did.
I'm on page
Oh, you already
2.
did? You're on the ball now.
But I would still love it.
We'll take it.
Nice. All right, we'll run with that then.
You know, I feel like my 2 pages of notes pretty covered it. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I was scribbling the whole time.
To save you from trying to decipher my horrific handwriting, I'll whack all of this into Brewfather, and then I'll shoot it over to you guys, because I can barely read what I write sometimes, so I don't think there's any point putting me through that
We're
torture.
on the same page here. Like, no worry.
All right, well, look, guys, I think I've kept you well long enough, so I don't want to keep you
No worries.
on your Friday anymore when you need to open some more weird margarita ghosts, double sour. What was it? Watermelon splash.
Well, and I was trying to think of like a good collab name, and I probably fell back to the internet, but
Yeah, what do you got?
yeah, Fiesta Wombat is kind of what I landed on.
That's pretty good.
And
I love it.
I like that. You pull out ChatGPT for that?
I'm not talking about that. But Fiesta Wombat, I feel like, is kind of the perfect, a little bit,
It's a vibe, dude.
a little spicy. We're gonna mix our styles here.
I like it.
We're partying, but I also, I've been staring at these casts behind you, and the flying wombat burn it is. I think we're gonna mesh very nicely here. So
I like it. No, I think that's solid. The Fiesta Wombat IPA. That's awesome.
exactly. I think we nailed it down just like that.
That's
Yeah.
great.
All
Yeah,
right.
we've got to and Odin, for you, mate, you need to decide what you're gonna do about this footage, because we've spoken for so long. You're gonna have to work some serious magic to squeeze this down into like 5 minutes.
And then we need a wombat with a little sombrero, with the maracas.
I like it.
Yeah.
No, I'll get our graphic designer to come up with something to whack on it. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That would be great.
And there you have it, recipe is made. So it's time for us to get a couple of materials so that we can actually make this thing, and then we're gonna circle back to you in a few days from now, where we'll be releasing part 2 of this series, where we actually brew this brand new Fiesta Wombat West Coast IPA. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you soon.